Dennis O'Rourke.
Mr Speaker, I first of all want to thank the Christchurch City Council for the very good information that it has provided in support of its promotion of this bill. As we who live in Christchurch know, the Riccarton Racecourse is a very important piece of reserve land for racing in Canterbury, but there is a lot of land there, and I think it's quite appropriate that the surplus land should be available for housing, because that's also a major objective in Christchurch these days. The objectives of the bill are well set out in the City Council letter of the 14th of September to Members of Parliament, and it says this: the objects of the bill are A, to identify part of the Riccarton Racecourse to be available for housing development, B, to provide the Board of Trustees with the powers to prepare, finalise and implement a development scheme in relation to the development of the land, and C, confirm that the balance of Riccarton Racecourse continues to be held by the Board of Trustees on trust for the purposes of racing, and D, provide for the continuation of the Board of Trustees in whom Riccarton Racecourse is vested, and E, otherwise provide for the administration of the Board of Trustees. Now, Mr Speaker, what that means is that we're going to get two important objectives achieved. One is racing, as it always has been achieved there, and the other is the provision of more land for housing, which is also an urgent priority in Christchurch. So the key purpose of the bill is to increase the supply of affordable and market housing in Christchurch, because following the earthquake sequences of 2010 and 2011, the Christchurch housing market has faced significant challenges as far as both the availability and pricing of rental housing and new housing are concerned. And in addition to that, there's been further pressure resulting from the influx of workers on the Christchurch rebuild. The pressures have resulted in high prices for houses and extraordinarily high rents for rental homes. So with this bill, the board of the Riccarton Racecourse will be making better use of land which is surplus to provide for that major objective in the greater provision of housing in Christchurch. And I'm pleased to see that the proposal involves building at least 600 new homes on the site, with about 30% of those to be reserved for more affordable houses. Now, that's totally in line with New Zealand First policy. That's what we want to see, although I think we would prefer to see 50% as affordable homes rather than 30%. Nevertheless, this is a pretty good effort. Affordable is actually defined in the bill as below the threshold for first home buyers to access the KiwiSaver Home Start grant. And Section 6 actually says this in defining the meaning of affordable house. It says affordable house means a house that has the maximum sale price as at the date in which the house is sold as required by Section 9A of the amount at which the person eligible for a Home Start grant in Christchurch City would be able to purchase a house and receive the grant, or if the Home Start grant scheme no longer exists as at that date, the last amount that applied under paragraph A when the Home Start grant ceased, or thirdly, $450,000 if the amount referred to above is less than $450,000. So I think that's a very comprehensive and very appropriate definition of what an affordable home would be for the purposes of this bill. Now, the bill would provide for a development scheme meeting specified minimum requirements to be submitted to the board by the Minister. And in that regard, Section 9 says this, and I quote, a minimum number of affordable houses required. A, require a minimum of 180 affordable houses on the land to have been issued with code compliance certificates and so on. And B, provides for compensation payable to the Crown in accordance with section 14 if that minimum number of affordable houses requirement is not met. So, Mr Speaker, that means that we'll see at least 180 affordable homes, and I think that's a good effort. But as I've said before, 50% or 300 affordable homes would have been better. However, the whole development is very welcome in Christchurch, where there is still a very significant shortage of homes, and the government has done, I think, quite insufficient to meet that shortage, as it has in Auckland. But it is especially pleasing that this development is happening because it is quite near to the central city, and it is very proximate to excellent public transport and existing schools, shops, doctors, and many other facilities. The enabling bill also provides for compensation to the Crown if affordable housing is not achieved within a specified time frame, as I've already mentioned. In that regard, section 14 says this. It says, and I quote, "A scheme is to be submitted to the Minister must A, provide for the compensation payable to the Board, by the Board, to the Crown if a scheme is approved and the Board fails to meet the minimum number of affordable houses referred to in section 9A. And B says, specify the amount payable or the method to be used for calculating the amount payable, which must include or provide for the following. 1, monthly compensation starting 5 years after the approval date of $1,500 per month for each house, by which the number of houses that meet the time limit in section 9A is less than 180. And 2, maximum compensation payable for each house of $17,000. And 3, rather the remission of compensation in part or whole if, for the reasons specified in the scheme, it would be unreasonable for the Crown to enforce compensation. So there's a bit of a let-out clause if it's unreasonable that that compensation should be paid. And I think that's a very adequate way to ensure that there is a very firm incentive for the developer to ensure that the affordable houses which are to be built are actually achieved. And so I very much approve of legislation which has teeth, and this has teeth. I think it will mean that the affordable houses we want to see will actually be built. So I think the bill, Mr Speaker, is well drafted and well thought out. Indeed, it could be a good template for others in similar circumstances elsewhere in the country, or indeed elsewhere in Christchurch. Because, Mr Speaker, there is actually a significant amount of other surplus land available, both in Christchurch and in Auckland, where the shorting houses are the most acute. And this is one good way of achieving more affordable houses and more homes generally in areas where there is a housing shortage. So, Mr Speaker, New Zealand First is happy to support the bill and to congratulate those who have conceived it.